Hi, Stuart Bruce here, and I am the Spare Time Property Investor. In these podcasts, I'm going to share tips, tricks, and lessons that I've learned and will hopefully help you, especially if you're still working the 9 to 5. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spare Time Property Investor podcast. Today is an interview episode and I'm joined by James Robbins from Robbins Property. He is a letting agent by trade, so he's a letting agent turned property investor. So he provides some tips about how to work with letting agents, as well as sharing his journey so far. As ever, thank you for joining me. If you enjoy this episode or find it helpful, please like it, please share it, and also make sure you subscribe so you can get the next episode. I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet, so without further ado, let's get to the episode with James. So thanks again, James, for coming on to the podcast. First off, it would be fantastic if you could introduce yourself and what you're up to in property.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on firstly. In terms of myself, I'm James. I run Robbins Property. So we've just started in the sort of last 6 months, really. We've bought our first project. In terms of things, we sort of buy properties in the northwest. It's essentially sort of BRR. Long-term view is obviously build a portfolio and rent them out and hold them for the long term. It sort of coincides with my day job as well, which I work as a letting agent. So it's also have the similarities between the two. And just looking to sort of purchase that next project at the moment, really.
That's fantastic. So you're already looking at the next project?
Yeah, so it's the first one I'd say is nearly finished off. So we've done the whole refurb, got the refinance in motion. It's literally just the sort of last sort of T's and C's we need, and just the finance released really. But already trying to get that sort of in line really, because as I say, it's having that the next one on the go is important, I think, to get sort of going really.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. So you're down in Kent. I don't think you invest around by you, do you? Where do you invest?
No, so the first one I bought is Manchester, and that's really sort of, there's a few specific areas around there that I target as well. So sort of just outside the city centre really. But yeah, like you say, I'm based down in Kent, so it's a bit of a trek up there. It's a bit of a trek to make the the motorway journeys and stuff like that. But I have a good team and network up there to sort of help me with that kind of stuff, so I sort of can work remotely.
So that's really interesting, because a lot of people, either because of where they live or for other reasons, they intend to invest further afield. And one of the problems that a lot of people face, obviously, is finding the right tradespeople, making sure they have the right knowledge of the towns and cities that they're investing in. So first off, how did you go about identifying the area? And secondly, how did you build up this team that you have up there working on the project?
It's an interesting one because, as I say, I think I looked at many different areas. I spent a while sort of researching where I was going into, and at a point, you've just got to take the plunge that you are going to invest in a certain area. It's more important that you'll actually take an action rather than sitting around. But in terms of actually deciding on that area, I think there was just a lot of fundamentals around the northwest. As I say, there's a lot of headlines that would go around as well, with property prices, going up, and the potential there. And that's kind of what I saw as a potential up there. I got chatting to a few people that worked in the area doing similar things that I wanted to do, really, and actually sort of found my mentor through that. So got someone up there that I sort of discuss things with, helps me along. And in terms of that, sort of the areas that sort of he purchased in, and sort of new local knowledge, and then sort of from there, really just gaining my own knowledge, looking out, finding areas that I'd like to invest in, ones that I think are at the right target price for sort of the BRR stuff, and then finding tradespeople just through recommendations of people that not only he's used, but other people in the area have also sort of recommended letting agents and other people like that, really.
No, that sounds really good. And I think having recommendations is so important, especially when you're putting a lot of trust in these people following through with the job when you're hundreds of miles away from the property.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Say for the first one to be done, and there was not many visits I did. I did a visit after I bought the property. I did a visit nearly when we was doing the snagging, so nearly at the end of sort of the refurb. Really. But two visits up there in that time, it shows that obviously you can put your faith in your team as long as you do sort of trust them. But say on the first one, you've got to, I suppose, take that plunge.
Yeah.
It, it, it's a tough one because you don't want to what's going on, and it's up to their sort of ability to do so. How the project comes along, but I think it can be done as long as you trust your team, put the faith in them.
Mm-hmm.
And long term, I'll be working with the builder that I've got, over the foreseeable, really.
No, that sounds really good. So is your mentor up in that area? Is that one of the reasons why you kind of looked in that area, or?
Yeah, pretty much. So we just got chatting, and so it's something we'll probably touch on later as well.
Yeah, I'm sure
With
we
the
will.
fact, yeah, with the fact of one of the biggest things is networking. Really, I sort of met him through LinkedIn. Not so LinkedIn. I met him through Instagram rather. And I think obviously it's so important to keep that network there. And we just sort of started chatting about something. I think it was completely random, really. And then sort of had a Zoom, and we're doing now. And sort of found out a bit more information about what was going on, what he did. I liked sort of his values, and then found it from there, really.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, that's great. And how the other thing is, I'm just thinking about you being so far away, and you've had 2 site visits. How do you monitor what's happening in between? Well, obviously, since it kind of your first visit and the second visit, have you had updates from them, or how have you done
Yeah.
that?
So that's really important to get that. I find to have videos, to have pictures coming
Yeah,
across. I ask for that. I ask for it at least 2 to 3 times a week to come across a report of what's actually happening there. Because when you're sort of sat and you don't see what's going on day to day, you sort of have that idea of what are they actually doing? Is that stuff coming along? Is it as quick as they should be doing? Um, but in terms of things, if you're getting that progress update, then I think you can. I certainly found I could work with that.
yeah,
As I say, it depends as well. I'm quite proactive and stuff, and I actually struggled, I think, to not be on top of things there. I think there was definitely a part of me that would like to have been, on site a bit more. But the way that I've got to view it, I think people should, in scenarios, is that you're a property investor. It's not, you're not a builder. You don't go
yeah.
around and that's what you're doing. Sometimes you've got to remove that from yourself. And the deal stacked up. It made sense. There's no reason not to do it just because I don't, doing another 8 hours on the motorway. And I'm sure people don't envy that either.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's a really good point, because I think there's pros and cons, isn't there, to everything? But having the property at such a distance means that you can't go around and strip the wallpaper, or go around and do those little odd jobs that a lot of people kind of think to themselves, oh, I'll save a little bit of cash there, I'll save a little bit of cash there. So they go and do those pieces of work. But you're right, you're an investor. You're not a builder. You're not, a labourer. So it does make absolute sense to start off with those intentions, to leave that to the professionals and do what you need to do.
I think you have to be a bit pragmatic about your costs. Probably will go up, and I sort of accepted that at
Yeah,
the start. You might go over, you might make a mistake here and there because you're not on the ground, as it were. To see that there and then, and you've got to have that bit of leeway, I think, to sort of see that. But in terms of things went quite smoothly for me. I found. So that's just like on the first one, or actually having the systems in place. Really, I think it's obviously a bit of both. Stuff did come up during it, though. Don't get me wrong. There was still
I'm sure.
things that you have to deal with. But I think, like you say, having that trust in people, actually, taking away some from yourself and just being that investor, it's important to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're looking for your next deal. So obviously Manchester is a very hot market, and UK in general is a very hot market. So you still seeing those deals that would be viable for the BRR model?
Yes and no. Yes, in terms of what they're listed at, not at what they end up going at. I
Oh,
had a scenario where I called up within an hour and they already done 20 viewings they booked in, and another waiting list of 28 people. So
wow.
it's a crazy market at the moment. Why we're sort of going towards looking at direct to vendor strategies, I know a lot of other investors are doing at the moment. So we're just kind of working on a process to try and get that in, because there's deals that come up, but there's just so much competition at the moment to
Yeah,
actually get an offer accepted. That's the tough thing with it.
absolutely. So to be clear then, that first that first one, that was on the market. That was on the market, the one you've got at the moment that you're going through.
Not really. It
Right. Okay.
came about, as I say, direct to me. It was offered to
Okay.
me at a certain price, and they said because you can complete quickly, that they'd be able to make that work. So it's kind of an off-market deal, really.
That sounds cool.
They
Yeah.
are an estate agent, but it came straight to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool. So you did you build up that relationship, or was that a relationship you had already in your network?
I suppose through the network, really.
Uh-huh.
Say someone that I knew, say my mentor, say had used the agent before to buy another property, and obviously had mentioned that I was looking up there, and when it came available, the story actually is so I've viewed the property, or my mentor that viewed the property for me on the Thursday afternoon. Um, he said, it's good property, and this is what is being offered at to me. And I'd offered on a property down the road, so about 400 yards down the road, I offered a one that needed far more work, and this was
Uh-huh.
actually at a lower figure.
Oh wow.
Uh, so it was a no-brainer really. It needed a quick decision on it, but
Yeah.
it, I'd done all the research on the local area. I knew what was happening, I knew what the works were going to cost, so it was a great one to just go right. I know that perfect, it works, and act on it quickly.
And I was just going to say, isn't that amazing? You'd already stacked a deal very closely, so you knew what it was going to be worth. You knew roughly what the area is like and stuff like that. So you had that knowledge you built up from stacking the other deal to just move nice and quickly, thinking this is going to work. I can go with it.
Well, I think I was offered it about afternoon, say 2 o'clock, and I think we'd already instructed solicitors by that day,
That's fantastic.
and got it going through. So we actually completed in, I think it was 8 working days in the end,
Wow.
of it all. So it was, a very quick process, but I think that's what you need to do to get them through it. There's a reason why people have to take a lower offer or are willing to go,
Yeah.
but there's a reason behind it, and that is obviously one of it is mainly speed, and that's what I'm able to offer them.
Yeah, lovely. So now you're going to focus more on the direct to vendor kind of approach of finding your next deal and probably subsequent deals as well. So there's a couple of things. So what sort of strategies are you using what marketing and things are you going to use for the direct to vendor? And has your background from the day job, which is as a lesson agent, how has that kind of helped you with that side of things?
Sure. So in terms of things, I know there's a few different avenues you can go down, sort of leaflet drops in and stuff like that. We've actually decided that we would go slightly differently. We target specific properties, so it's getting out there, people in the area to look around, see what looks like empty houses. Go on land reg, find owners' details, get it out to them, and also street view.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. Spending an hour. It's painstaking because you know what the chances it's going to happen. It's going to come across, but you just don't know. It could be that one in a thousand that does. So street viewing it, making sure that it looks like a property that could be vacant, and just sending a letter out to it. It's more efficient in terms of cost. It's a very minimal cost to just send the letter out, and chances are that there might be that one that says, actually, no, I am interested, but you're probably going to target a lot of properties that are either empty or you don't necessarily
yeah.
get through to the owner of that one. But it's kind of that is the direct to vendor stuff that you have to do. Unfortunately, you have to put in the hours to find those deals on
I
that.
think that's a really interesting, a very interesting approach because I think a lot of people, through training, a lot of time get told, you need to send out, 2,000 leaflets or whatever it is, but actually kind of really focusing in on what you want and what you kind of see, where you see the opportunity, whether that be, a rundown property or somewhere that looks vacant and things like that. I think, like you're saying, the efficiency of that. But then on the flip side of it, it's all a numbers game, isn't it? So how many of those do you think you've kind of flagged as potentials to kind of send letters to? Have you got hundreds, or is it kind of dozens, or what?
Yeah, in terms of it, so it's very sort of early on in that sort of strategy for me, at least. Anyways, I know a few people have been doing it before, but so I want to get the first one sort of through most of the process. It's only really started in the last sort of couple of months, really.
Uh-huh.
In terms of it, it's probably at that 100 sort of mark of properties where we found could be viable. But as I say, and as you pointed out, you could target. I've got probably a few areas that I'm looking to invest within sort of the Manchester area, and if your leaflet drop in thousands at a time in specific areas, you might get a response, and hopefully you will. But the chances of that, I think for the cost outweighs it to start. I mean, I might completely change my approach and go to that.
Yeah.
Happy to see that it might work, but I'm trying this out first, see what comes from it, and also along those lines of direct to vendor stuff as well. We're trying to sort of build our network, and offer sort of referral fees and stuff like that as well, just to sort of sweeten that, really, that if deals do come about, they know who I am, they know what we offer quickly, and they get a little bit out of it as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I think the referral side of it as well. I mean, I would have thought with your kind of background and network, I would have thought would going to letting agents and people like that who are on the ground going from place to place be an avenue where you kind of look to offer these people the referral kind of bonus, basically, to kind of send deals to you.
That's the thing at the moment. I think with estate agents in general, and say I'd class myself as one, really, lettings, but an agent. He's proven rather busy at the moment for people to sort of take that time to say, actually, no,
I
I think of that
suppose.
person first. But say it's more referrals to people. Just say, it could be someone that just goes, oh, I live next door to a property, I know the owner. For example, we live next to a property that was empty for 12 years. It
Oh
finally
wow.
went to auction. It was really overgrown, but it's that sort of thing that can just spark a conversation, and you can get some money just for literally referring that over. That's kind of perhaps the route at the moment. In time, I'd say it's definitely something I want to touch on with agents, because I sort of can build that rapport, I would think, with them when they've got a bit more time on their hands to kind of deal with people at the
Yeah,
moment. It's
of
we
course.
call you back. Yeah, we call you back if it doesn't go through with the other 28 people on the waiting list. So it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure they're chocolate at the moment, definitely. So that's really cool. And I suppose it gives you those opportunities as well as the market changes and as it fluctuates. That might be an option, but you'll already have the people who you're targeting just in the community. So you'll hopefully that will add to your kind of your pool of potential people as the market changes. So that could be a real bonus to you when that happens, as
What's
as
that?
well as the market changing. So it's actually we're able to buy properties and stuff like that without having that competition of 28 other people viewing and things like that. So that's really cool. So going back to the strategy you've chosen, so BRR. So what led you to choose that one as the main strategy you're focusing on?
Sure. I mean, it's something that I've been looking at property for years, working within that for a number of years, but settled on that sort of strategy really, because it can get to where you want to quicker. That I found, I just focus on the single lets, so I don't touch HMOs. It's not a really much of a focus for me at the moment. Things might change, but I think to get a steady portfolio of these single lets where it's not the same changeover of tenancy so much. You've got good long-term investments. People always want properties. People always rent. You can sell them on easier as well because you have that different exit. So for me, it's probably more about the risk. It increases the risk, and also it sort of increases that long-term view on it as well. Which is, so I'm only 24 at the moment, so I've got years ahead of me to build this portfolio. So went straight in with the sort of single lets on there, and that's how I kind of settled it. Working as an agent as well, I've kind of seen the changeover of tenancies as well.
Yeah.
So certain properties, you'll find, and there's not always a rhyme and reason to it, but there'll be, the 1-2 bed flats that, we will have a changeover every 12 months, 18 months. Whereas I think on average, it worked out that the sort of 3 bed family homes, they're sort of 2.5 years before a change in tenancy. And obviously, it's not something I would have known necessarily before working in lettings, but you see the sort of the inventory charges that you have to pay every time, checkout fees in that, you're getting it cleaned again, the risk that they don't clean it, risk of damage, just that changeover tenancy. It has a lot of different fees involved, if you're paying a letting agent to find you another tenant. So kind of looked at those hidden costs, as it were, and decided that, the family homes are the ones to sort of go for me.
I think that's a really good bit of insight that a lot of people just won't be aware of or won't think of when they're looking at their strategies. And even the difference between single lets, comparing a flat to a 3-bed house, and the kind of frequency of that turnover. That's a really good bit of insight, and I'm sure that is a really nice thing for you to be able to reflect on when you're thinking about your strategy and whether or not to stick with it, or diversify and things like that. You'll be able to go back to those kind of reference points because of your experience and your view from within the letting agent kind of world. So that's really good.
Well, I think it's so handy, you're always in that market, as it were. There's a lot of people, and I have a lot of respect for them, that come from, not property backgrounds to do it. But I think for me, it's really helped me having that insight into it. You're seeing what's going on with the latest trends. You're keeping up to date with, the ICR regulations, gas safeties, right to rent checks. You're seeing all that stuff as well. So you've got a great insight to what's going on as well, and seeing what happens with tenants, what happens with landlords, what makes a good tenant, what makes a good landlord, that kind of stuff.
So I mean, essentially, you're immersed in it, and I think there's a lot of people who, when they first start looking into property, some people go and get themselves a job in an estate agent or whatever it might be, just to kind of get a feel for it. But because you've come from that kind of background, you're just so aware of everything that's happening, and like you're saying, the legislation and guidance and everything like that, as it keeps on coming out and it changes all the time. So if you're not in that world, it's really difficult to keep on top of those things. So having that knowledge, as well as seeing other landlords going through the runner, sometimes the ringer with tenants moving on, and probably even things like tenant types in different locations, as well as different property types and everything like that. It must be really, really helpful for you. And I think that's a really, really nice kind of point to make, really, in terms of that insight. Definitely.
Well, I feel like I've kind of learnt from some other people's mistakes without having to sort of experience them myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So what, apart from being in that job, what first sparked your interest in actually investing in property?
It's a real tough one. I was trying to think about this as well, to sort of drill down when it was, what it was. I think for me, it's always been a thing. I don't quite know why. I think it's just the appeal of, you own that asset. I think even as a teenager, I'm still thinking about those things. Have a very business minded sort of family in some regards. To think about that stuff. Some of the family are. And to sort of have those views, upon you, you sort of start thinking about that kind of stuff. And with property, it just always seems such a great sort of, for want of a word, a vehicle, sort of wealth and stuff like that, as well as just owning. You see these properties and you think, wow, you want to own that sort of thing. So that's probably what first sparks my interest, seeing people doing well out of it, moving up that sort of ladder, but perhaps not doing it in the way that property investors are doing these days. But that's probably what first sparked it, and then got my sort of first job in property as well, really.
No, I think that's really cool. So your family, are they quite businessy? You were saying like some people are, some people aren't.
Some of my family are very much is business, and that's what they live for. Probably other half of my family, couldn't care less about it. They're not that focused at all. It's really dependent, I think, on the individual. So I've had some of that sort of influence, of seeing it's not a property business, but another business, and how it affects, it impacts on your life. You're not switching off quite, the same way you would as a 9 to 5, but the sort of benefits you get from that as well. There's a lot of different things that happen. You're never sort of bored. You're constantly doing stuff. So kind of have that flip side of it as well, really. That's
great. Okay, cool. So going back to, you were saying you've got a mentor at the moment. Did you have any, so it'd be great to talk about that and how that's helped you, but also, did you have any kind of training to learn about property investment?
No, so no sort of formal training, as it were. I spent probably about 18 months before actually purchasing, doing so much research. And some people may say, it wasn't a good use of time. You could have been sourcing properties, you could have been doing, other stuff. But I found networking, and not even networking events, just networking mainly through Instagram. As I put, I was speaking to someone the other day about this. it was so beneficial. I learned so much that I still carry with me today, even though I've only done, one property. I learned so much tips, and sort of experience from speaking to other people that I think is so beneficial to have those 18 months. I was still young. I'm still obviously building up those funds as well, to sort of first get started in property. So that was a real sort of good lesson for me to learn, to speak to different people, learn from them in that sort of time, really, in terms of that.
No, definitely. And it's such. I always say this. It's such an open community as well. I think if you ask people questions, they're generally pretty happy to answer them. People aren't that precious about what information they have. So I think it's always really worthwhile reaching out and contacting people and asking questions. So it sounds like you've done a great job with that.
Yeah, you just never know where it's going to come to. Sparking a conversation with the most sort of random little thing. As I say, going back, I found my mentor actually, funny enough. So he was just reading the book, and I just said, would you recommend it? And it literally came from there. And don't be
Oh well.
scared as well. I think one of the tips would be don't be scared to also ask for things. People are, like you say, happy to give
Yeah.
knowledge, share that with it. Property is probably one of the only places that I know that's quite like that. There's a lot of things on social media and stuff like that where it's not always great, but I find property is so inclusive.
Yeah.
People will always be very helpful on that. And as I say, from there, it can be the smallest thing, but it can sort of lead to say now a relationship, and stuff like that. You can get them so easily and readily, if you're putting in and asking genuine things of them as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So okay, lovely. So obviously you work in lettings, and a lot of people, property investors interact with people in lettings and estate agents and things like that. So have you got any tips for people who are interacting with letting agents to make sure they get the best from you guys?
It's a real weird thing. So I was thinking about this in the last few weeks. Obviously, having now dealt as a letting agent for years now, but also now being on the flip side of that and dealing with a letting agent myself, other things that I would expect from them, and want from them in terms of tips. It's hard to say. I mean, you've got to get on with your letting agent. That's the first thing. It's not about fee. It's about experience. I always recommend letting agents be ALA qualified, or at least be ALA registered,
Mhm.
in their office. So it's a good sign you've got some sort of recourse protection from that. They're following the guidelines. In terms of letting agents, it's not the easy job that some people may think it is, and that's not just me trying to say, oh, I've got a really tough job. It's
Yeah.
I'm sure there's far more tough jobs out there, but in terms of things, it's that legislation that's come in probably in the last 5 years or so that's really made it more about compliance more than anything else. So
Yeah.
you want your letting agent taking that burden off you, as kind of a compliance officer, as it were. They need to be doing that stuff. So you need to make sure you're up to date with them. But in terms of interacting with them, I think getting stuff to agents as all professionals as quick as you can, so they're on top of it. Asking questions of them, not just settling for okay, what's your experience? In your experience, what would you advise? I've got a few clients that I really like that I deal with myself, but they're sort of, well, what's your thoughts? We go with you, and it's like you've got to make a decision because this is your most valuable asset. So you've got to know what you're doing as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I suppose if you don't have that experience, don't be afraid to go fully managed either. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh no, I think I can deal with it." They think the discerning thing is between, can I deal with maintenance or can I not really? And that is the difference between when people go let only or fully managed. Whereas it's the all the stuff in between that. The legislation changes that if you don't have an EICR, you don't have an EPC, don't have a gas safety, the amount that you could get fined, it doesn't even compare to
Huge.
an
Yeah.
extra few percent really. So don't be afraid to do that either, even if it's your season of experience on there as well. Especially if you're not though, I'd always recommend it.
And I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Aren't always aware of all these little bits and pieces that could come a cropper when you own a property, and it's a lot to keep on top of. And also, there's no kind of one place to gather together all of the legislation, everything you need to, and what the local authority expects from you, and the fire inspector. It's all very disparate. So having somebody who understands it like yourself is obviously a real benefit. So that's really cool. Thank you. Have you got any tips for people who are investing alongside their day job, and how you've managed to invest alongside a day job and at distance? It seems like quite a thing to do, especially for your first project.
Yeah, it's quite a feat, I'd say. To do that, I'd have admiration for everyone that can do it, even if it's local, but based far away. It's not easy. But I think in terms of the things that I would sort of say tips wise, you've got to put in the work is the first thing. Um, there's no point, if you're not involved in this industry, if you're not going to put in the work, then you're not going to get much out of it. You know, there's a lot of people that will complain about this or that, but if you're not putting in the work to actually get to where you want to get to, then I don't think you can really moan. You've got to find that time between, you know, I do it just sort of before work, I do it during lunch, I do it into the evenings. It would be nice to sort of switch off at 10 o'clock, I guess. But, I don't think I really do. I think I'm there till sort of 12, half 12 some nights, just a new deal's come on, right, let's just analyse this tonight, because if I don't analyse it tonight, by the time tomorrow comes around, then it might not be there.
Yeah.
You might be that last book and you get in, and you might be the one that now offers and gets it. So I'm kind of quite driven in that aspect. So I think important to find a time to actually put in the work, because otherwise, well, there's no point starting really. If you're not going to put in the time, then you have all these great ideas, but you've got to find that time. You might sacrifice going out, for a few nights. You might sacrifice doing something at the weekend to do it, but you've just got to make that time for yourself.
No, that's really, really good. And I think it's one of those things as well, because I think a lot of people get seduced by the idea of easy money. Basically, people see property as a way to create passive income, and you retire early and all those things. But to get to that point, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of sacrifice, and there's nights, there's weekends, there's probably not spending the money that you would otherwise spend because you're trying to get your deposits together and stuff like that. So I think it's a really good point to, expect to put in the work. And if you're not going to bother, well, maybe it's not for you.
I know it's that thing about passive income thing. It's hard to do at the start. It is possible, but it needs ongoing maintenance, and it needs a lot of input at the start. You're not just going and buying, or generally not most investors are buying, ready-made tenanted properties straight off the bat. A lot of people doing the BRR method or some form of that. So you can't just go out and income comes into you straight away. You've got to put in the work at the start. Over long term, as I'm sure you'll testify, it does work, and it's there, but it's not as easy as it gets some people seduced by.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Lovely, cool. Have you got any property or business books that you'd recommend?
I was thinking about this in terms of what books I have, property wise. I don't think I have any property books that I'd say, are must reads. I think at the start I was very keen, right, I've got to buy all these books, I've got to read all the information, I've got to take it all in. You don't have to. You can do it at your own pace, and you can do it through different avenues, really. There's a few books I've got, but I find Instagram generally is the best place for it. I don't know what I would do if Instagram went down. Generally, it's such a great resource, because you're learning from experience, you're learning from different people. You've got 10, 20, 30 people that you might respect on there that you listen to, and you take out bits and pieces, nuggets from there, and you can save them and come back to them a later time. I've got, over 300 screenshots just in one album. My phone will write, these are, little things to think about. And every now and again, I'll go back over them and sort of have a look at and think, right, okay, this is what I should be focused on. Mainly it's about patience, really. One thing in my world, it's just taking some time, being patient, trusting the process, sort of thing. But I think you can get too bogged down with books and too much not learning, but too much reading over the same sort of stuff, because same authors will have to peddle the same material. But in terms of business books, I've got a few that I really do like. Some like the 4 Hour Work Week is a really good one, I find. But it's definitely interesting. So I don't know where, I definitely haven't come down to 4 Hour Work Week yet, but it's definitely a place, I want to get to in the future. Definitely. Yeah, on there. And a few other ones, which one is by Darren Hardy, and that's a compound effect, and it's just putting in that small changes
Great
Yeah,
book.
great. Really, really important. I read that last year and took a lot away from it. And it's those small daily things that it's like you say, it's not these big changes. You can't just put them in because in a week's time you'll probably lose them again. It's doing
Yeah,
that consistent grind, really. And I think it's same with property. It's simple to do in theory, but it's not easy. It's simple but hard. You've got to put in the work to get
yeah.
to it.
I think with that book, it's great because it almost zooms out and describes what will happen if you do it for X amount of years. So those incremental, tiny little things you do every day that seem kind of inconsequential in a way, but give it 10 years, give it 22 years, and your life has changed. So yeah, and
Hmm.
I think that's a really, really good book. I like that a lot. There's another book called The Slight Edge, and I always get them mixed up, but
I haven't read that
very
one, but
similar.
I've got it on the
Similar.
Amazon. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got it on the Amazon wish list, but there's so many still to get through. In terms of them, I like business books rather than perhaps property books. I find.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, a lot of property books are very similar. There's only so much you can say about buy to let, and there's only so much you can
Yeah,
say. So yeah, they are
yeah.
quite similar. Lovely. Okay, so lastly, then, so what will your life look like when you've achieved your goals?
Such a broad question, I suppose, isn't it? But
I know. Well, the other question is, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? But you're only 6 years off that, so I don't think there's any point in that one.
it seems a long way. It seems a long way ago now. But yeah, in terms of what I want it to look like, I suppose it depends what period of time you're looking in. I have certain goals that I want to hit, and I think most investors do.
Okay,
It,
well,
it,
what give it 10 years then. What will your life look like in 10 years? What are your goals if you achieve everything you want to over the next 10 years, for instance?
10 years, I mean, I tried to break it down, but 10 years would probably for me be I'd be full time in property, certainly by at least a few years within that sort of industry full time. And obviously, when I say property, I don't mean as in my letting agent stuff. I
Yeah.
mean sort of full time. I say so many people using Instagram. I was kind of just taking that thing, but no, full time in my business, as it were. So that would be doing slightly bigger projects, I imagine, in the future. Rather than this single let BRR, which I'm sure I will still keep into, but perhaps the commercial stuff as well would be an avenue, or selling options, or plans to build land and stuff like that. But that's so far away, it's hard to sort of say that's what I'll be into in that time. Really, for
Yeah.
me, I've got a goal to get to in terms of an income, where I want to leave. So that's probably a few year goal in terms of to meet where I can leave my job. And I've got another goal to obviously where I sort of want to be in terms of from there, where I can start paying for a bit more expenses, stuff like that, and a long term portfolio goal. And then from there, it's a tough one, but my sort of daily life, I suppose, would be full time property, not having to wake up at a certain time. You can wake up when you want, and be just invested in the life I want to live. And by that I mean actually still in property, still enjoying myself, excited, doing exciting things. Really, I think that is what I took from the 4 hour work week as well, is that you've got to be interested, you've got to be
Yeah.
excited about the things you do. um,
Definitely.
so I think just an interested, exciting life, hopefully, is what the goals are. Sorry to not be,
No, no,
you know,
I think that's absolutely bang on, because a lot of people say freedom, and generally that just means being able to control your life and do what you like. So if that means to you being able to control your life and do exciting stuff, it's a similar sort of answer, really. And a lot of people say similar things, they really do. So yeah, that sounds absolutely bang on.
when I say exciting, I don't mean sort of going skydiving or anything like that. It's just, property project, or
Well,
doing,
no, no, no.
doing
You've said excited now. You need to sign yourself up to some
I'll,
skydiving and
probably people tell you it's so boring as well.
well, lovely. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's been really great to get to know you and what you're up to as well. But where can other people go and find you and see what you're up to?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, the best place for me is Instagram. I'm very active on there. Probably could be more active, but I'm generally on there most of the time. So it's Robin's Property. If you want to find me on there, As I say, take a look, message me. Don't feel bad for dropping me a direct message or anything like that. So if anyone out there that wants to get involved, whether that's as an investor or just any sort of like knowledge that they want to find out, any tips or tricks, please just shoot me a message and be able to sort of chat from there.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, see you again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So there's the interview with James Robbins. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you got some value from it. If you did, please like and share the episode. And I hope you join me next week for another episode of the Spare Time Property Investor podcast. But that's it from me for now. Best of luck and I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please leave me a 5-star review to help other people find it. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.